I'm from the future. Save humanity. Hit subscribe now.
Mark Fischbach, aka Markiplier, brings us Iron Lung. And this is a 2026 self-financed movie that is based on a video game. Now I should point out I am not familiar with the video game, and nor am I really familiar with Markiplier. I have heard the name, but I've never seen a YouTube video of his. But I understand that he is obviously a popular YouTuber. So this seems to be the thing now. YouTubers kind of going into making movies. And this one, as I say, based on a video game. The story is at some point in the future there has been what they call the Quiet Rapture, which we presume is some type of biblical post-apocalyptic event, and humanity is now in tatters, and we follow Simon, played by Fischbach, and he is a convict sentenced to imprisonment for his part in the destruction of a space station, but he's given the choice to instead of being kept in prison, is to pilot this sub, and he's welded into this sub, and this is on a kind of a mission on some moon where the seas are filled with blood, and he basically goes in there and sort of makes discoveries, shall we call it, and it's very kind of cosmic horror, very sort of Lovecraftian coded, lots of kind of surreal imagery, lots of kind of symbolism and things. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss. So this is a lower budget movie, and as I say, it was kind of self-financed, and a lot has been said about the atmosphere and the cinematography. So let's start with the cinematography. Now, I think the cinematography is a little bit of a mixed bag, if I'm completely honest with you, because I do think this movie is a little underlit, which falls under the cinematography, which makes me think some people who say the cinematography is good don't know what that actually means. But that being said, that there are some kind of good use of camera work here, a lot of kind of like artistic shots and things like this. So I think the movie definitely has a feeling of like a labour of love on it from the part of Fischbach, where he's obviously the director, the star, the producer, pretty much everything really. But whoever's shot the movie, I think, is makes for some good photography ultimately, and I think there's some interesting kind of shots, and it is a moody film. It is a one location film, and it all takes place really within the cockpit of this sort of sub. So there's only so many places you can kind of do, but I think they make the most of this environment with different kind of lighting and kind of sort of angles and things like this, and set decoration. And it has this kind of slow pace, which creates this sort of nihilistic sort of atmosphere, I would say. So I do think the movie definitely does deliver on some kind of like somewhat sort of spooky vibes, certainly speaking. And I think there is some neat science fiction touches in this. As I say, I'm not familiar with the game, so I don't know how much of this comes from the game, but because this ocean is actually filled with blood rather than water, you just can't see out of a window. So they use this kind of almost like a sonar mixed with X-ray, where they sort of shoot out like these kind of shots of kind of like an X-ray, and it kind of gives you like a visual interpretation of what's out there, by some type of like sonar or something like that. And I thought that was a pretty interesting idea, and that we find out that there are things that you might not expect maybe out in this kind of ocean of blood, which is there are some sort of interesting visuals of this one, it must be said. For Mark Fischbach, aka Markiplier, I think he's asking a lot of himself. He really is the only actor on screen. We get a few interactions with a couple of other people, but for the most part it is Fischbach on his own. And, you know, considering, again, this is someone who is really their kind of first foray into filmmaking, I don't necessarily think his acting is bad. I think he overacts a little bit. But when you're thinking, okay, is this like if you think about B-movie standards, and this really, I would say, even though this had a cinema release, it really feels more like a B-movie to me. You know, I think it's fine. The acting is fine. It's not brilliant. I think he does ham it up a little bit too much and overacts a bit. But I think if you are used to watching kind of lower budget fare, I think he makes for, you know, a watchable kind of character, and, you know, we kind of learn more about him as the kind of the film sort of goes on. And it's, you know, they've apparently used the most amount of fake CGI, fake blood in this movie. As the film goes on with its climax, you understand why. It's not exactly, it's not a gory film, but they have used the most amount of fake blood in any movie to date, apparently. So there's a little plaudit for it. But let's talk about what doesn't work. Okay, so let me just touch on some of the things that I think that I said the positives of it. Markiplier, I would say, you know, look, I don't think his acting is bad, but he does. I don't think he quite knows how to pull off some of the more dramatic elements to the role, and there is an element of overacting from him. Not bad, as I said. If you're used to watching sort of B movies, straight to video, straight to streaming style films, I'd say it's fine. But as he's the producer director, it might have behooved him to cast someone else, I would say, because when you are a singular person on screen, the movie is really carried by the actor. And I don't think, whilst not being, I would say, bad, he's not quite strong enough, I would say, to really carry a film all on his own. That's the first thing. Let me just touch on the cinematography as well. So this has been the big thing about this movie that I've seen a lot of. Oh, it's such great cinematography. It's extremely dark. And I think to a point where it's like, okay, if we're meant to believe this is some type of futuristic society and this is some space age sub, why does it not really have much in the way of illumination inside? You know, it doesn't really make sense. It's sort of, you know, for the story wise it doesn't make sense, and for the movie itself it's just very, very dark. I would presume to hide the sets, because obviously it is a lower budget movie. But ultimately, the net result is it's a very dark film. So it's therefore sometimes quite hard to see what's kind of going on. But let me just stay with the design choices here. I think, you know, the set here is this cockpit of this sub. And I don't know if I was quite believing that it was a sub. I know it's meant to be this kind of futuristic sub, but these, you know, you've got this basic kind of chair without a seatbelt on it. You know, you've got really low lighting. There doesn't really appear to be a kind of a system where, you know, he's like piloting it exactly. For a lot of the time he's kind of wandering around and thinking, are you actually steering this thing? There's a few times where you see him, like, you know, play about with some of the controls in what looks like navigation, but for the most part he's not doing that. And I was thinking, why is this sub actually even manned? I mean, it's not as if, like, you know, it's sending out these pulses that are taking these visuals and stuff, and I'm thinking, I don't really understand why this sub even needs to be manned. Again, I'm not familiar with the game, so but it just seemed to be that the human pilot doesn't really seem to do anything much in that. So it, like in this kind of future society or whatever it is, does it really need to be a manned submersible? And let's talk about the world at large. So this movie, I think, is made for fans of the game. But if you're not a fan of the game, like I am not, I've never even heard of it before this. I mean, like, you get this, like, monologue at the beginning, oh, there was this Quiet Rapture, okay, you know, so but we don't know anything about it. It's so vague in regard to the plot synopsis. So this he's in this ocean of blood on a moon, like some context, please. I mean, that would be helpful. And it's like, why is it an ocean of blood? Where is this blood come from? What is it the blood of? I mean, is it actual blood, or is it just kind of like their version of water or whatever? It's just so there's just no world building in this movie. There's absolutely no world building. So, as I understand it, Markiplier's channel is something to do with video games. So I'm presuming he's a fan of this, and they just go, oh, I'll make that. But he's not adapted it to make this movie a film which was pulling audiences that aren't familiar. And this is not. I mean, I used to work in the games industry, and admitted it was a long time ago, but. I don't know how big this game actually is, because I've certainly never heard of it. But anyway, but even if you're going into this blind, it's just it's completely inaccessible. The movie is way too long. It's over 2 hours long. I'll have to be honest with you. Even a standard like 90 minutes, I think would be too long. This movie, I would say, would be better as a short. It's one of those films. So it's a movie that would have been better as a short, but it's not even normal featured at the time, 90 minutes, which is kind of the standard length for a film, really. It's over 2 hours. It's just like, my God, does this movie drag. Jesus, it's one location in a dimly lit cockpit with someone who's not a professional actor, oh my God, with very little story. There is very, very minimal story here. It feels massively dragged out. Now, this has got quite good ratings, so I feel like I'm the contrarian here, but I really don't see what the fuss is about, to be honest, because I think this movie is actually quite a poor film. Yes, it has some visually interesting things going on, but even then I would say that I put a limit to that. There's no external shots of the sub or anything like that. It's just the kind of the cockpit. And you've got to bear in mind, film is a storytelling medium, and that's actually it needs to tell a story. It needs to have storytelling techniques, and I don't think this does. It's just a kind of almost like a showcase for Markiplier's ambitions as a filmmaker, and I think it would have worked better as a short. For me, this is a 3 out of 10. I've got to say, I think this ends up being quite a bad film in my personal opinion, and I know this has got quite highly rated from everyone else, but for me, I'm just not seeing it. Some elements of creativity for sure, but one of the parts of filmmaking, it is a collaborative affair. When you are having one person doing it quite often, even with experienced filmmakers, they can be very self-indulgent, and that is what it is here. 3 out of 10. What were your thoughts? Leave me a comment and I'll see you next time.